What are some good first date questions to get to know someone? What is your spaghetti policy? Fun, open-ended questions that lets them talk about them a bit. Stuff like, what are your political leanings? Quote, quote, are you religious? Quote, quote, what is your stance on the Armenian genocide? Quote, should have put the serious tag in here, fella. Who are you? OkCupid had a really cool blog about statistics from their huge user base. The 3 questions they found were best predictors for compatibility. Do you like scary movies? Have you ever traveled alone in another country? Wouldn't it be fun to chuck it all and live on a sailboat? If you agree on those 3, you're likeliest to succeed. Some other fun bits from that article: if you want to know if your date is religious, ask how they feel about spelling mistakes. Higher tolerance of spelling mistakes correlates strongly with being religious. If you want to know if your date is DTF, ask her if she likes beer. There is a strong correlation between the two. What are your favorite subreddits? And why are they all furry related? Have you heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Does this look infected? I take it you're trying to date and are nervous. Honestly, there is no rule book questions you should really abide to. Just get to talking. Start off with small talk openers like, where did you go to school? Where do you work? Do you like this and that? Eventually you'll get around to talking about hobbies, experiences. You can tater off and then talk about your own experiences and just ping-pong off of each other. Eventually you get a pretty good feel of that person is genuine or fake. That's how most conversation starts sounding natural with a good flow. Of course, if you get somebody that sees you and finds you butt ugly, then you won't get any responses at all. And any questions you ask would lead to no information about them this year. Question: what kind of bear is best? Ask them who their favorite Muppet is. If they choose anyone other than Gonzo, explain why they are wrong and then leave. Folks will often say that you should stay away from R.A.P.E. on a first date. For the record, that stands for religion, abortion, politics, and X's. The topics you should avoid discussing. Here's the thing, though. Unless you're in the market for a short-term, casual relationship, it's in your and your prospective partner's best interest to put as many cards on the table as possible. After all, you don't want to spend several months dating, only to discover that you aren't compatible with a person. Like, say, because they not so secretly believe that leprechauns control the weather or something. As such, the best conversation starters are those which lead to simultaneously interesting and revealing exchanges. Quote, if you had an hour during which any crime was both legal and socially acceptable, what would you do? Quote, quote, are there any social taboos that you feel are a bit ridiculous? Are there any to which you don't personally adhere? Quote, quote, what is the most allegedly unacceptable perspective that you hold? Quote, now, granted, the answers to questions of that nature are very often things that shouldn't be voiced in public. So you'll want to be tactful about where and when you ask them this year. But at the same time, if the date seems to be going well, you can use the prospect of more intimate discussion as an excuse to go somewhere more private. In neither case, the best conversation starters are those which reveal important details about both parties. Those which help determine whether or not the two of you will be compatible in the long term this year. In other words, you should absolutely discuss R.A.P.E. on a first date if you're looking for a permanent partner. TL. Doctor. The best conversation starters are those which would normally be conversation enders. Your parents are about to be executed. You're given a chance to save only one of them this year. Which one do you choose? Bonus points if you follow up with what's your favorite ice cream flavor. What's the largest mammal you think you could knock out with a single punch? What gives you the right? Do you use Reddit? Quote. If they say no, you can safely say something like, "Oh, okay," quote, and change the subject. But if they say yes, then you need to get up and walk away. Edit. My new top Reddit comment is basically a repost of my own comment on essentially the same question. Quote. Shall we go to the bone zone? Quote. What's your name? Who's your daddy? Is he rich? Is he rich like me? Favorite dinosaur? As you sit over coffee, get beyond the usual. Nice to meet you. How was traffic? Having a good day. To get the conversation flowing, the next question should always be, so are you aware that you need to put a serious tag on a post if you want to get good answers? What are you in for? Quote. How many walkers have you killed? Quote. How many people have you killed? Quote. Why? Quote. I don't know if it's good for a date, but it's fun to ask strangers. What's your favorite compliment? It gives you a lot of information, and I think it starts a conversation pretty easily. Which vegetable offends you the most? Coke or Pepsi? Especially if you're serving them. Do you want to be the lampshade in my living room or bedroom? In an emergency, how many third graders could you fight off? You got STDs? Thanks for silver. What do you like doing in your free time? I never asked about people's jobs. I didn't really care how they got their money. I cared how they got their excitement and passion. I like your dress. Does it have pockets? Quote. Are your fingerprints in the police database? Quote. In millimeters. How long are your toenails before you decide to cut them? Do you keep the remains? Quote. Do you have any pets you aren't using anymore? Quote. How do you feel about basements? Quote. Which bodily fluid do you think has the most pleasant aroma? Quote. Which layer of skin do you favor the most? Quote. My cat died 6 years ago. Wanna see? Quote. Which side were you rooting for in WW2? I am stung by a jellyfish. You peeing on me? What is your social security number and date of birth? Can anyone give an answer on how to get a first date? Let's not put the cart before the horse. Where were you on 9/11? What unresolved childhood trauma will emerge through maladaptive behaviors as we spend more time together? If their name is an uncommon one, make sure you ask what's the correct pronunciation. Literally, the first thing I said to my husband on our first date was, "Hello," followed by a butchered attempt to say his name. He replied, "What did you just call me?" Quote. And up until that moment, I had never before felt the urge to jump into the nearby creek in mid-February. Just get it off the table. Kids or no kids? Do you have any outstanding warrants? Quote. Why are you gay? Using Ugandan accent. On our first date, my husband and I did a thing where one of us would choose a year, then wed both. Say what we were doing in that year of our lives. It was a great way to get to know each other. Do you put your toilet paper on the holder with the loose end over or under? That'll tell you all you need to know about that person. What are some good first date questions to get to know someone? Quote. Why don't you put away your phone? Quote. What's your favorite random fact? What's the most spontaneous thing you've done? What's your worst cooking disaster? What would be the hardest thing for you to live without? The irony of all these hilarious answers is that you could probably use literally any of these questions on a first date and they'd most likely laugh, which by nature makes them good questions to ask even though they're intended to be bad ones. ITT joke answers are meta AF. Lots of hypothetical situation questions. I find they help you understand how they think and prioritize their lives. E.g., if you could travel anywhere in the world for W month, all expenses paid, where would you go? What would you do? Will you marry me? Ask about her interests. Maybe you don't have common things. What would be their weapon of choice in the apocalypse? This isn't so much questions, but a little game you can play that can help break the ice and let you know how well you mesh together. If you're at a place like a bar or restaurant, look around the room and try to come up with backstories for other people there. It can be a lot of fun and takes some of the pressure off, while getting you two talking to each other and getting a feel for each other's sense of humor, personality. What are some things our parents don't know about you? Who did you choose between Squirtle, Charmander and Bulbasaur? I knew this would be a shit show when I didn't see the serious tag, lol. Does this rag smell like chloroform? Have you ever had a dream that you had to, you could, you do, you went, you you could do so, you do, you could, you wanted them to do you so much you could do anything? What was your first pet's name? What was your second grade teacher's name? What was the make and model of your first car? What is the name of the road you grew up on? What city were you born in? Then read all their emails and DMs. Good way to get to know someone. I read a LPT earlier today that stated if you're taking someone on a dinner, movie date, go to the movie first. That way, at dinner, if the conversation is lacking or having a hard time starting up, you can get it going with talking about the movie. And #X200B. Seems easy enough to get a conversation flowing, especially if you're feeling nervous. Good luck! That about wraps it up for this one. Be sure to like the video. Leave a comment down below if you want to see more. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon too. And as always, thanks for watching.